Hello everyone, welcome to my first trimester video. If you follow me on Instagram, you would know by now that I am pregnant. Josh and I are expecting a little one in spring. I recently watched Zoella's first trimester video and just found so much comfort in having somebody that I felt like I could relate to. The first trimester is such a roller coaster and you're going through so much and so many changes, and I just really felt like now that I'm on the other side of it, I wanted to create a video for expectant mums so that I can be that person for them to relate to and reassure them that it's okay. There's no one way to feel, there's no right or wrong. So I did post a little questions box in my stories last night, and a lot of you came through with questions. So I've written everything down in my little pregnancy journal, and I'm going to try and cover everything that you asked and also just everything that I want to touch on. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump straight in. Joshua and I were trying. That was one of the main questions. We were not, however, planning on it happening so quickly. So I have been on the pill since I was 17, so a long time. And I just kind of figured, and after a lot of research as well, that it would take a little bit of time for my body to adjust, to get rid of all those hormones. It didn't take any time. We fell pregnant on the first try. So there are no words to describe how grateful we are to have been that lucky. And while we're on that topic, I really want to mention how sensitive I am to the fact that there are people out there currently right now going through their own fertility journeys, their own issues, their own problems. And I really want you to know that I am really sensitive to that. If you need to mute my Instagram, if this video is not for you, if you find it triggering, please know that I totally understand. I don't want you to feel like you're doing the wrong thing by me by unfollowing or muting or leaving the video. I want you to do what is best for you and your mental health and your experience. So please know that I am thinking of you, and I am very sensitive to what other people may be going through. So that's why I ummed and ahed about whether or not to share the fact that we got pregnant on the first try, because that is not easy for everybody to hear, and I am extremely grateful and still in shock that that is our experience. The issue that came with that was my body didn't have a lot of time to adjust to the changes. So the hormones that were still in my system from the pill didn't have time to leave my body, I would say. And while my body was trying to deal with that change, it also had to deal with the fact that I was now pregnant. So I would say that I experienced cramping. That was my first symptom from literally the day that I ovulated. So in my head, I'm like, oh, it's just ovulation pain. I then had cramping days after that, probably for a week, that I would say was like relatively intense, to the point where I needed a hot water bottle. So I spent that week on and off with a hot water bottle, like sort of right down my lower belly, like sitting on my pelvis. And I was just kind of experiencing this really strange pressure pain, kind of like period pain, but different, like not anything I'd ever experienced. I'm just gonna keep referring back to my book so I don't miss anything. But basically, I kind of just knew I was pregnant. I just had this feeling. I felt so different. The cramping was full on. I took a test, I think like 8 days, maybe even like 6 days after I'd ovulated, which is way too early. So it was obviously negative. I think I ended up taking like 2 or 3 because I was so convinced, and that would be my advice. Don't do that. Just wait the 2 weeks. Anyway, we finally got to about 10 days post-ovulation, and I just said to Josh, I know I'm pregnant, like I can just feel it. And I took a test and got a really faint line. So I kind of almost had to like hold it to the light to see, but it was definitely there. And I have no patience, so I just told Josh that day. I got the little test and put it in like a box and went out and handed it to him. And he was so confused because we were just talking about the fact that I thought that I might be pregnant. He was like, how could you have done a test so quickly? Like, I can't even see anything. Like, what is that? Is that even a second line? So it was just like a really funny fail of announcement. But we were both really, really excited. Mostly just for me personally, the feeling was complete and utter shock. So much, like more than, I feel bad even saying this, but more than excitement, just shock. I didn't expect it to happen so quickly. And I feel like I didn't have the time to absorb what was going on. And before I could even have that time, I was in a lot of pain. That cramping and pressure turned into really, really borderline unbearable pain, to the point where I think about 12 days post-ovulation, Josh and I ended up in emergency. And they confirmed the pregnancy for me, and they thought it was too early for me to be experiencing any type of pregnancy symptoms. So they were testing me for kind of everything else. We were there for hours and hours. We got no relief. I just got some like painkillers that were safe for me to take with the baby. And they ended up admitting me into the early pregnancy clinic at the hospital. So I had that appointment on the Monday. So Saturday night we were in emergency. And on the Monday, I said to Josh, you just go to work. Like, this is just going to be a blood test and a checkup, and I'll be all good, and I'll let you know how it goes. Like, I'm fine to go by myself. Anyway, that day they ended up admitting me into hospital straight away after doing my blood pressure and everything. Just things weren't right. And I was admitted for, it was called pregnancy of an unknown location, which basically means you have a suspected ectopic pregnancy. And for those of you that don't know, that is when the baby implants somewhere outside of the uterus. More times than not, that's usually in your fallopian tube, which is really, really dangerous. So again, the shock I was already feeling was so heightened, and Josh wasn't with me. I was on my own. So I called Josh, and he obviously came running, and we spent that day in hospital, blood tests, just multiple tests. They gave me lots of fluids to try and help me with the dizziness and fatigue and everything that I was feeling. And the pain just wasn't going away, and no one could figure out what it was. So in the end, they said, you can stay if you want, or you can go home and just continue to monitor yourself. And we lived 10 minutes from the hospital, and I was in no shape to be without Josh for a night. So we went home, and I continued my appointments with the early pregnancy clinic. And over time, that intense pain that I was feeling dissipated. And I had scans and tests, and there was never any answer other than my pregnancy was healthy. So we still don't know what that was. Personally, I just think it was my body's response to, holy crap, like we just came off the pill and where there's already a baby in here. So my body just like adjusting. But it was terrifying and scary and horrible, and I just had no time to absorb the happy side of what was happening because I was so anxious and so terrified, and it really set me off emotionally in a really bad way for my first trimester. I feel like I just was not mentally or physically in a good way. So we had the scan and we saw the baby at about 6 weeks, and it's literally just like a little blob. And that's how they confirmed that baby was in the right place. Everything was okay. Baby looked good size for my gestation. So that was all fine. But I didn't have that like emotional response I expected to have when I saw the blob. I was like, I'm gonna cry. It's gonna be this amazing thing. I didn't feel that way because I had been through so much physically and mentally. Just the exhaustion was so much that I was just like, okay, like we're all good. That's how I felt, like, okay, that's done. We're all good, like on to the next thing. And I carry a lot of guilt with me even now still that I didn't have that emotional response that you are supposed to have. So going into the first trimester, like I said, I was not in a good way, and I was carrying a lot of anxiety with me. And I think I went in really naive thinking that because I'm healthy and I'm fit it's going to be a breeze. I'm not going to get sick. Like, I'm not going to be that tired. I'll just push through. I'll exercise every day. Was I wrong? I was so wrong. So I've got like my first signs written down here. So the first things that I was dealing with was the cramping continued on and off probably throughout the whole first trimester. No one talks about that. You cramp a lot all the time, and it can be quite scary, especially if you've had a scare like we had, because every time you get a cramp, your brain just says something's wrong, this isn't right. But it actually is. It's really, really normal. Dizziness, every time I stood up, I had to brace myself. I felt like I was gonna fall over. High heart rate, breathlessness. Just walking became difficult. Like, I couldn't even go for walks because I could not catch my breath. And that kind of continued the whole way through. The fatigue was like nothing I've ever experienced in my entire life. I've never felt that level of tiredness before. I didn't know it was possible to feel that tired. To be completely honest and frank with you, most times from about 6 weeks onwards, I felt like my body was shutting down. Like I couldn't function. My eyes would burn just trying to keep them open. Like, I had this fog, I was groggy. It's just, there's no way to explain that level of tiredness. And I just did not see that coming. I didn't know that was a thing. So that was a huge thing for me to deal with. And then came the rest of the symptoms. So I have them all written down here. It's a very long list. Food aversions. I turned off from week 6 everything that I know. Everything that I love, everything that I'm used to eating, couldn't do it. I couldn't look at a vegetable. I couldn't look at fruit. I couldn't look at anything healthy. The thought of it just made me feel so sick to my stomach. And that nausea definitely kicked in from week 6. And it would be from the second I opened my eyes until I went to bed. It was all day long. And the only things that I could eat were so random. Prawn dumplings, like the little frozen ones that you get. And I would be like feeling like I can't eat anything. And then it's like, flip a switch. I'm starving, I have to eat right now, and I can eat prawn dumplings. And that's the only thing that I'll have. And that's like the intensity of the craving. So I would make the frozen prawn dumplings. I would eat like, I think they're like this big. I would eat like 8 of them. And while I was eating, the immediate relief is I can't even explain it. And then afterwards, you feel good for a little bit, and then you kind of slowly ease into feeling sick again. I've got to be completely honest, nothing really helped it. The only thing that helped me was constantly grazing, crackers, bread, prawn dumplings, rice, potato, plain carbs basically. And I would just have to constantly be nibbling on them. Couldn't drink coffee, which is crazy for me because my morning coffee is like my favorite thing. Couldn't drink tea, couldn't drink milk. Like, the only thing I could drink was water, and I could not get much down. So the nausea and the fatigue mixed together made for a really difficult time. I had to reduce my hours working. I couldn't do any exercise. I don't think I exercised for about 6 weeks. It was just like full-blown survival mode, just getting through the day. And I would be going to bed at about 7 or 8 p.m. and sleeping straight through until I woke up again in the morning. So I didn't have any insomnia, which I'm very grateful for, because that's apparently a very common symptom. Other thing was bloating. I was like, we thought I was showing at like 7 weeks. Obviously I wasn't, but just the bloating is crazy. Like, I feel like I looked like 6 months pregnant, which didn't really faze me because it's not uncomfortable. It's not like your usual bloat where you feel pressure and that discomfort. It's just, I just had a belly. So I didn't really mind the bloating. That didn't really faze me very much. And sore boobs. My boobs were so sore. Took a while for that to kick in. I don't think that kicked in until about week 7 or 8. And then it's really like full on. Kind of feels like you wake up in the morning, you feel like you've been like punched, like bruising almost. And sensitive nipples, that's another thing. Oh my God, like if you wear the wrong bra, wow. One of the main questions I got was what helped you with the nausea. Unfortunately, there's not too much I can tell you. You just kind of have to ride it out. Ginger did not help me, so just the constant grazing on carbs. And I also took the Elevate morning sickness vitamins that contain B6. I found that definitely took the edge off. And when it got really bad, sometimes peppermint or mint, like sucking on a mint, would help. I think it's definitely individual to everybody, so you just kind of have to try things and see what works for you. I've got written down anxiety/fear. That was definitely my biggest issue, other than the morning sickness in the first trimester, was the emotional roller coaster. You just kind of feel like you've been strapped in to a roller coaster and you've never seen the roller coaster before, you don't know what it does, and you can't get off. That's what it felt like. So much anxiety and fear mixed in with that excitement. It's just so much to process, and there's so much going on inside your body I can't even explain to you. And it's mixed with hormones that heighten everything. So every emotion that you feel is so heightened and so intense that it's just really hard to process. I cried, I think, nearly every day. Poor Josh. Mostly just feeling overwhelmed. Like I said, our initial scare really did not set me off well. And I was so tired and so sick and just uncomfortable and not myself. I couldn't eat, I couldn't exercise, I couldn't use my normal outlets, and I just did not know what to do with myself. So my main reason for doing this video was to show people that not everyone's experience is the same. Not everyone's experience is going to be, this is a miracle, this is amazing. I feel, like whatever symptoms come my way, it's totally worth it. And obviously it is worth it, but it didn't feel like that for me. And I carry so much guilt with me every day that it didn't feel like I imagined it would feel. And that I felt like I was failing as a mum because I didn't feel how you're supposed to feel. And someone actually said to me, oh, you're not very maternal. And because that was such a fear of mine already, I just remember feeling like I am just failing dismally at this. Like I'm doing a terrible job. And I had always convinced myself that I would be really good at it. And you can't be good at being pregnant. You have no control. There is nothing that you can do other than get through. And whatever your experience, whatever your emotions, however you're feeling, that's okay. That's what I want you to know if you're expecting. There is no right or wrong. There is no good or bad. You can't be good at pregnancy or bad at pregnancy. It is what it is. And if you're surviving and getting through every day, you're doing a phenomenal job. And that is what I want mums to know. You're doing something unbelievably insane. That when you think about what you're doing, it's the most incredible, amazing, overwhelming thing in the world. And just to get through each day, especially during that first trimester, like you're doing phenomenal. And I really needed someone to tell me that. And that's why I'm so grateful for my husband, because he was just incredible to me the entire time. Every day I would just sit there crying. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. Hormones. He would just sit there every day and be like, I would be dying, looking horrific, half asleep, just really in a bad way. And he'd be like, you know what, you're doing so amazing. Like, I'm so proud of you. Like, you're doing such an incredible job. And I just did not feel like I was at all. And just having that support was what got me through. So I am forever grateful to my husband, and can't express how important that support system is. You need that support system, whether it's your partner, a friend, mum, dad, sister, brother. You need someone there to say to you, like, you're doing a good job. This happens all the time, by the way. Pregnancy makes you really teary. I can cry at anything, like crying. So just ignore me. Another question that I got was how our hospital experience has been. The Sydney public system, we're going public, has been phenomenal. When I was in the early pregnancy clinic, they were so overly cautious with me, and that was really reassuring. Like, in hindsight, I'm not sure I even needed to be admitted to be monitored, but well, maybe I did, I don't know, but they just seemed so overly cautious and so caring, and they really wanted to keep an eye on me and the baby, and that was just really reassuring. You would always want them to be over the top. Do you know what I mean? And I really felt like that, and they were really supportive with me. I'm now obviously out of the early pregnancy clinic. So far, touch wood, everything since has been textbook. So there's not been much involvement. When you go public, you don't have as many appointments as you do if you have like a private obstetrician. So it's basically just like every few weeks, we have a scan and they touch base and everything. And if your pregnancy is textbook, they basically just like let you do your thing unless you have an issue. So that's working really well for us. I like that. We're obviously not that far in, so I will keep you updated, but so far, I can't fault it. Actually, yes, I can. The only thing with public is wait times. You have an appointment time, but generally you are waiting a little bit longer than you would if you had a private obstetrician. But again, for what you're getting in that public system, it's completely and utterly worth it. And I just want to finish on body changes and eating, diet, that kind of thing, because that was another one of the really common questions that I got. I definitely struggled with my diet changing because I have irritable bowel, and all I wanted was gluten and just white basic cut, like the smallest amount of fiber ever, probably no fiber actually, was all I was eating. And it was fine at first, but after a few weeks, takes a few weeks for my body to really go, what have you done? And that did happen to me. I just threw my whole digestive system off. But in saying that, there wasn't much I could do about it because like I said, I was in survival mode. So my biggest body changes were the bloating. I had a huge belly for most of my first trimester, which, as I said, for the most part, didn't bother me in terms of discomfort. And I just wore baggy clothes and I was too tired to care, so it didn't matter. But once I had stopped having fiber for like 6 weeks of my life, you can imagine that was not a fun situation. So I would definitely say if you are struggling with eating and you're only eating like white carbs and things, make sure you include like a fiber supplement, because that is gonna come back to bite you, trust me. So the big belly, my boobs changed a lot. There's just no preparing you for that. In size, shape, fullness, heaviness, they look a lot different already. Your nipples change, they get darker, they get bigger, all that fun stuff. So that kind of hasn't really bothered me, I would say. I'm doing everything in my power to just roll with it, because I've had body image issues in the past, and I know it's very much mindset for me. If I say to myself, like, we're just going to roll with this and we're going to embrace the changes, that will make it easier for me. So that's my mindset. What my body is doing is phenomenal. So I'm just like, whatever you need to do to be good, to keep baby safe, to keep me safe, like, let's just roll with that. And there is this huge light at the end of the tunnel. And at about, I'd say 11 and a half to 12 weeks, that light just shone. I started feeling better. I got my energy back. My bloating sort of went down. My mood started to lift. My food aversions went away. I can eat anything I want now. I can exercise again. not like I could before. My heart rate is still like through the roof and I still get like really out of breath, but I can exercise again. So if there are people in that situation where the first trimester is just this dark, gloomy, difficult time, rest assured that if you just continue to push through, that light at the end of the tunnel will shine. You will come through to the other side and start to feel like yourself again. And you know what? If your first trimester wasn't amazing, don't worry about it. I dare to say most people's first trimester is not that amazing. It's an insanely difficult, overwhelming, emotional, stressful time. So if you take anything away from this, please just be kind to yourself. I wish I had been kinder to myself. I beat myself up like you wouldn't imagine for not feeling the way I wished I could feel. So that's what I would say. Just be kind to yourself. Go easy on yourself. What you're doing is amazing and you will come out the other side. So I am just shy of 15 weeks now. I feel for the most part like my old self. And I feel like I can finally take a breath and just start enjoying the process, which is a very exciting feeling. I'm still very anxious, I'm not gonna lie. This is the biggest thing that will ever happen to us. And I am nervous about what I'm gonna go through. Not the birth for some reason. The birth, I'm quite chilled because it's gonna happen. But I feel like my body was made for it. You know, I'm just going into it without a plan, just whatever gets baby out safely is totally fine with me. We're gonna be really relaxed about it. And that's the mindset I plan to keep for the entire pregnancy. That part of it, funnily enough, doesn't faze me. I'll let you know if that changes. But yeah, I am nervous about the actual pregnancy just because it's like a little bit of PTSD from the first trimester. I don't know what's gonna happen. And there's so much that happens that you don't know is gonna happen. So yeah, lots of anxiety with that. And just with the changes afterwards, how am I gonna cope? Am I gonna be a good mum? Is my relationship with Josh gonna change? Obviously it is, but like I hope, it's all in a positive way. There's just so much that goes on in your brain. And yeah, that's okay. It is what it is. I can't change that. So I'm going to really put a focus on exercising daily, minimum 30 minutes. That's my goal. Where even if it's just like really gentle stretches or Pilates and meditation, because for me, it's a mental thing. Having anxiety pre-pregnancy, I'm going into this actively aware that anxiety is going to be something that I carry with me throughout this entire pregnancy because I carry it with me in everyday life. And I just think being really self-aware is the best thing you can do when you do have anxiety. So I am just going to carry that through and do everything in my power to keep myself in the best possible headspace for my baby. So that was my first trimester. Hopefully it brings a little bit of comfort to anyone else that is feeling the same way. And yeah, like I said, congratulations to any mums to be. I promise you it gets much, much better if you are struggling in the first trimester. And like I touched on previously, if you are in your own fertility journey right now, or you are struggling to conceive, my heart is with you, my thoughts are with you. And like I said, if you do need to remove yourself from following me or mute me or not watch this video, just know that I completely understand. You have to do what's best for you. So thank you for watching, and I will keep you updated, and I will talk to you soon. Mwah.